go to questions.
Yeah, well, before we get into Iowa, we've got a little bit of sad news. We've got two kids that tested positive. Madi Sissoko, was a few days ago. We were kind of hoping that it was a false positive, and his roommate, who's my son Stephen, both of them have tested positive for COVID-19. Kind of get an idea on two things. Number one, those two kids have done everything that possibly they could do and go nowhere, and yet we're going to closely monitor their progress during their isolation period. They'll be isolated for 10 days. They'll be out for the 17 and the Big Ten protocols regarding their returns. And thank God everybody else on the team has continued to test negative. And we're just stressing the same thing. You watch the NBA, the NFL, now hockey starting, and you're not only seeing a lot of people getting it, but you're seeing more second time, which was my worry of Christmas and New Year's. And, guys that had it maybe earlier in the summer, we didn't have many that had it early. And then the second one comes 90, 100 days later. And I guess just like Dr. Fauci said, sounds like it's all pretty standard as far as what he said and what's going on. But, it saddens me, of course, because Madi was a guy that we're starting to play more minutes, and we knew with the Iowas and Illinois coming up, size would help. And he was starting to play, 6, 8, 10 minutes a game, whatever he was playing, and building towards even more. But we're just going to continue to support them. There's nothing we feel there was no behavior in any way that they were out at any local establishments or anything like that. It just again, a little more unknown, but we're gonna have to deal with it. And for me, at least I can tell my son what I went through. So and Marty. But as far as the game goes, we're coming off a tough loss, probably one more disappointing than most, and maybe some more disappointing than any I've had in my career. But we said it early in the year, the league's going to be unforgiving this year. There's nobody that you can make up on. And it doesn't get any more unforgiving than to play the toughest, highest ranked team that, in the Big Ten right now, and that's Iowa. We felt like in the last game, the last really 3-4 games, we've played much better defense. The last 2 games, off the charts, better defensively, and came down to, Purdue played really well the second half, and we turned the ball over too much and gave them too many opportunities. We need to get a better offensive rhythm. That's pretty apparent, and but it starts with protecting the ball. When you turn the ball over, you don't get as many shots. When you don't get as many shots, you get 41 shots. I mean, we had that almost in a half one time. So that was discouraging. Aaron and Josh continue to play, I think, very consistently over the last few games. I think Malik Hall has played very consistent. We just feel like we've got to get maybe a few more shots for Joey Hauser. We feel like we've got to get Gabe Brown back in there a little bit more. And Rocket, I've been very pleased with his practices as he's trying to learn how to hit that mid-range shot and things. So he's had a very good week of practice. As far as Iowa goes, as I said, you can argue who's the best team in the league. It depends who plays who. But they definitely are not only one of the best in the league, but one of the best in the country. And I think they're one of the more, they're not Wisconsin, but they have some veterans, a lot of veterans, and led by Garza, a 4-year guy, Bohannon, who's playing his best basketball by far in the last 4 or 5 games after struggling early. And he's either a redshirt senior or even in his 6th year because he's had some injuries. But that's a big difference for them because now they got a point guard shooting the lights out at 50-some% and a center who's at 60-some%. So they've got you inside and out. It's a very skilled team, I think, with a relentless center. I mean, when I say relentless, if you watch them run, you'd think most of you could cover them. And and the guy just has a heart as big as a lion. I mean, he just keeps going. He might not get to a certain speed, but the speed he's at is the same speed when the game starts and when it ends. I think he's got a great right hand, left hand. He's got vacuum cleaners for fingers. They just suck the ball in. Very good hands, and he can shoot a three with more than respectable consistency. So Fran's done a great job with this team, because after you get by the point and the center, and now you get into, Weiskamp and Fredrickson and his own son, Connor, who I think they've done a great job with. What happens when you got guys that have played together for 3 and 4 years, people do understand their roles, and nobody does it better than Connor McCaffrey. He, he's kind of a point forward. He kind of just sets the right picks, makes the right passes, takes a shot when needed, but really understands his role. And I think probably an undervalued member of that team in Weiskamp and Frederick, two guys that are, as good as any wings in the league. They can shoot it from three. They're 6'5", 6'6", pretty athletic. They can put it on the floor. So, when you look at it on paper, it looks like the best team we've played by far. And yet, they've still got, like everybody's got, he's got things that, I think their defense has improved as a team, which used to hurt them a little bit. But you kind of cheer for a team like this if you weren't playing them, because number one, I think Fran's a very good coach and a very good guy, but the way their team he hasn't built it with transfers. He's built it with freshmen, and he's built it with guys coming in and growing together, and they have a lot to offer. So, questions?
We'll go first to Chris Solari.
Hey, Tom. In particular with Garza, with Marty out, what is the challenge now for the other three guys in the post, the centers, and how do you, I mean, I know you won't give it away totally, but I mean, do you feel like you can go small on him like last game? Do you feel like you can go big, or you can just want to throw a lot of different bodies at him?
We don't have a lot of bigs to throw at him, but we'll throw a lot of different bodies. But, I think Marcus is going to have to step up and get more of a chance. And I think Julius Marble, who I've been a fan of all year, but just trying to work him in. And, Joey can cover some. We could go small at the forwards. Sometimes they're small at the forwards, but big at center. And, whether we double some, we do some different things. As you said, I wouldn't give it away, but I don't think it's any secret. As I told my team, if we do a hell of a job on him, he might score 25. If we do a poor job, he might get 33. He's kind of going to get his points. What we've got to make sure of is we put an emphasis on Garza, but if we put everything on Garza, then, every two he makes is two. Every three they make, because you don't guard the perimeter, is three. It doesn't take a genius to figure out that at the end of the day, you don't want to try to stop the two and give up the three. So they've got great balance. That's what makes them a top 5 team.
We'll go next to Matt Charbonneau.
I know the defense has played better the last few games, and you're happy with that. Offensively, I know the turnovers are a big thing, but what's the key to finding that consistency offensively? Because it seems like this is a game you're certainly going to have to score to kind of keep up with this team.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think that's maybe a good issue. I do think turnovers create some of the problem. I mean, we had 4 turnovers or 3 the first half of the Purdue game, and we're scoring a decent amount of points, shooting a very high percentage. And the turnovers have been in a variety of ways. I mean, illegal screens, things that aren't normal. But I just think we've got to get a little more consistent on shots that are taken. Sometimes, Josh is making a good shot, a little tougher shot. We got to maybe pass up the first shot to get the second one, which is a little better, except for Joey and Malik. I think they got to take the first one they get, because they don't take enough shots, and some of that will fall on us. Some are personnel. I still think that the big thing would be getting our break going again. You know, we've defended better, but we haven't necessarily rebounded better or run better. And that usually is the staple of our program. So we want it to be a track meet. I'm sure they do too. So, you know, maybe it'll be more open, and that might be better for us anyway, as far as getting some shots up and getting some baskets in. So that would be the things I think. You know, I think AJ has done a decent job, you know, distributing as has Foster some. I still think Rocket can do some things because of his explosiveness. And we're going to have, everybody's got to play a little bit better. I mean, only Aaron has been the consistent shooting the ball, you know, when, I mean, Rocket and Joey and Josh have all kind of struggled lately to shoot the ball. And if they're not shooting a good percentage, they're getting the most shots.
We'll go next to Lindsey Huddleston.
Thank you. Hey, Tom, I know Iowa's on the clock right now, but Monday we all watched Nick Saban win his 7th national championship, historic win. Because of your relationship with him, because of his relationship with Michigan State, I'm just curious, do you guys get inspiration from him? You know, do your players get inspired by seeing something like that? How does that impact your overall championship culture too?
You know, it's interesting. I always get inspired by Nick. I just appreciate the consistency he's done things with and the class and humility. I mean, he never makes anything about him. If you ask me, he makes it all about his team. But I mean, there's a great example. You know, we played North Carolina about 10 years ago when they had Hansborough and Ellington and all of them. There were 4 of them that could have left early. They all came back to win a championship. I heard Nick say something about 7 or 8 guys could have left that came back to win a championship. And when you see that, winning becomes the priority. This day and age, it's a little harder to make winning a priority. Everybody's got, you know, make sure they get their clicks on the social media, or make sure they get their highlights, or make sure that they, you know, get their draft status up. I mean, it's just the way of the world right now. And I think that I told my team to at least watch the pregame, because there's always human interest stories. You know, that receiver, I mean, the class he had in dealing with everything, you know, the running back. I mean, those things impressed the heck out of me. And I always say, when you see that happen, you say they got what they deserve. And everybody thinks they got the best players, and they probably do. But best players don't win you games. The players who play the best win you games. And I thought that they demonstrated a lot of that. I was proud of Nick, happy for him to beat Bear Bryant's record and this and that, and records are made to be broken. Knowing Nick, it matters none. He's probably worried about next year already. But at the same time, I think we could all learn something from the consistency he's brought, because he brings it in recruiting, he brings it in offense and his defense. He gets different coordinators. He's got what I would call a culture there that is second to none. And the culture is about winning. And you listen to the players talk about it. I think it's one of the great sports programs, because winning is the only thing talked about. And that's just not the case all the time. And they've had a few slip-ups there. I mean, I've talked to Nick enough to know that, you know, maybe they end up 9-3, which is a slip up there. But I mean, where players start worrying about, you know, I mean, you got a guy with a broken frickin' leg, and he wants to play so bad in the game that he plays after having surgery, and he's a pro prospect. You got a pro prospect, the lineman, the center, who wants to go in there. He just had knee surgery, and he puts him in for the last play. I mean, if you really watch that, it doesn't matter if you're in sports. I think for all of us, that's an inspiring, emotional, and Nick deserves some credit, but those players deserve a lot of credit, because they're the ones that put themselves on the line, even being injured. It just showed winning was more important than their future. And that's not the case much anymore.
Yeah, Tom, that's great.
We'll go next to Brendan Quinn.
Tom, with those positive COVID tests, how are you guys able to avoid a shutdown? And is there any concern about the status of Thursday's game?
Well, we were able to avoid a shutdown because of the everyday testing that we do. That has made it a lot better for us and gives us a chance. Like when I got it, we didn't shut down. I was with my players every day because I tested 16 straight days negatively, and who knows how I got it, but got it. And so they just got me out of here before I could infect somebody else. And we did the same with Marty. As soon as we found out he tested positive, we got him out. Same with Steven. But at the same time, we've gone more than a few days now with nobody else testing positive. And that doesn't mean you're completely out of the woods. And we will also, now that we got our testing done this morning, contact Iowa and explain the situation. But I think for the most part, that's why we test every day. And that's how it's worked. And it's worked pretty well for the most part. Now, if we have a bunch of guys that get it and test positive, then we will be shut down.
Yeah, I asked in part because, there's been some games in the league that have been canceled because of the quote's been, an abundance of caution. So I just wondered if there's any possibility of Iowa saying, let's call this off, or you guys agreeing, like if that's could be on the table.
I imagine there is a chance of that. And
Okay.
and I would completely understand. I mean, I don't think any of us really know what's going on. I think we're just trying to trust the process and the protocol the best we can. But if that happened, I would totally understand. I mean, if it was vice versa, like when we played at Duke, they thought there was a false positive, and I was still ready to play the game as long as because they were testing every day. But that's totally, each school has its own discretion on that. I could say no, I guess if I wanted to too, but I'm just following our medical doctors, our Big Ten protocol, and I think we plan on playing the game, but that could change. And if it did, I'd completely understand it.
When do you guys travel? Later this afternoon?
Tonight.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
We'll go next to Kyle Austin.
Tom, I had one more follow-up for you on the COVID thing. Is the Big Ten protocol officially 17 days now for guys who test positive? And can you say when that clock started for those guys?
Yeah, it started 4 days ago, I think. It's 17 days that they can play in a game. 10 days, they're kind of, I won't say COVID-free, but they're not as likely to transmit anything. And 14 days is when they get their heart, and then they give them 3 or 4 days to get back in shape. So it's a serious blow still at 17, as we know. Some in the NFL or NBA or some schools have 10 days total, some are 14. 21 was the max, 17 is still the max, I think, of any conference. And that's what we're doing here, and we're supporting the protocol. But it'll be 17 days, so it'll be somewhere, I don't know, our trainers, I got enough things to worry about. They got that down. But I want to say Marty was, if it was 4 days ago, 2 weeks from today, maybe around the 19th or, no, let's see, what's today?
Look at the 27th or so. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, probably before he can play again, probably around the 20th, he could be out of isolation and, maybe watch a practice or something. He just could not participate. And then right after his heart scan or treatment, or then he can start practicing again.
And then, if I could, you mentioned earlier about wanting to get Gabe more involved. What was kind of the decision with him not having quite as big a role against Purdue? And
Josh and Aaron were playing pretty well, and they were playing very well defensively. And, that was the only reason, to be honest with you. And if we had to do it over again, would I do it different? Maybe go smaller and play Gabe or Aaron at the foursome. Maybe, and that's a possibility, but it wasn't anything Gabe did wrong.
We have time for a couple more. We'll go to Sarah Tidwell from the State News.
Hey, Coach. So in the last 3 games, we've kind of seen the same starting five. So what do you look for when you're picking the starters? And then what do you think are the benefits of having, somebody younger like AJ starting versus Rocket coming off the bench?
Well, the whole thing with Rocket was whether he played the point or not, to be honest with you. And that was a decision we all made, and including Rocket some. Now, he has, I'll tell you what, spent a lot more time looking at it, and I think has a different perspective. And he's actually, we've played him some there. I think he's getting used to the driving, the kicking, and you're not seeing as many of the step back threes, which I think is going to help him. He's still not shooting as good as I think he can shoot, but we just tried to take a little bit more off his plate, so that, because we think we need him a lot. And last year, he played about 20. That's what he's been playing this year, but he's been down a little bit those couple of games. But I still think Rocket's going to be a very valuable part. He'll play more than one. But AJ has done some things. His assist to turnover ratio is very good. He's been pretty good defensively. I don't think as good as Rock. I mean, if I started the season like I did because that was my hopes. But sometimes coaches, our job is to put everybody in the best position they can be put in for them to be successful. And I told you I thought we hurt Rocket a little bit because wasn't real ready for that, considering he had no practice time all spring, summer, fall, and exhibition season. So I took the blame for that and still do. But he has spent a lot more time, and you're looking at those things, and we're still he's still a very, very, very important part to what we do. We just got to get everybody's got to play a little better, and coach has got to coach a little better.
We'll go Larry DeLage to wrap it up.
Hey, Tom, how would you describe how you're feeling about this team, and if you can describe what you think the players' psyche is? And
yeah, I think people, there's so much going on in our country right now, that I'm not saying that the players, blow anything off, but they've learned to deal with a lot. And, last week, I mean, after that game, I guess I took offense to a couple of questions that more or less, are you losing your team? There's none of that. I mean, I got as good a kids as I could have. I feel great about where they are. There's nobody, we practice very well. You don't lose your team with a couple losses. People aren't quitting on anybody. We didn't play well, and now if you took the first half of that game, you'd say we played maybe one of our best halves of basketball. So the guys have been great. And I've told you in the past when they weren't. So you can either trust me or not, but it has been different. As you talk to people all over the country, these kids are going through a lot, and you throw a little bit on their plate and lose a couple games, and people get mad and all that, and then they're dealing with the COVID, and now we start school again. None of you will ever appreciate what those guys are going through. Sometimes I don't appreciate it. I just, as I said, I got to go through a lot too. Every day you worry about who's testing. That is every day of the week. And when you're tested now for 3 straight months, that's a lot of worrying in the head coach's part. And yet I don't worry about the demeanor of our guys. I don't worry about the attitude of our guys. I mean, you're always going to have somebody, sometimes I'm not crazy about Marquis' body language, and I tell him that. But Mark is going to get more of a chance than he even had, and now he's got to play, and I think that's a good thing. But there's been no, everybody will want a quarterback controversy. Everybody will want something negative, and I'd be the first to go with, I don't like the way they're doing this, don't like the way they're doing that. Probably one of the sadder pregame or postgame events I had in the locker room, because I wasn't mad at anybody. I was hurt and disappointed for them and with them. And I say that because we played as hard as we could play. We didn't play as well as we could play. And I think it made them realize there's more than just offense. There's more than just defense, Win championships, you got to be, and to be successful, you got to be good in all areas. And if one lets you down, it's hard to make up for it. Right now, we're struggling offensively. It was just a month ago, we were scoring 80 points a game and 85, and everything looked rosy offensively. And we were sitting in these same press conference complaining, why are teams shooting 48% against you and 50? I watched Duke last night, and their team defense is 46 or 7%. It's like unheard of. And so we're trying to correct the same things. We've corrected it. We're way better defensively, and now we're struggling some offensively. So maybe this will be a good game. I know everybody will be up for it. I knew they were up for the Purdue game. And then the chance to not play in front of fans on the road or playing maybe a little bit tells you how important our fans are at home. And but I swear to you, Larry, there's zero issues, zero. Guys are great. They've worked hard. We've had 2-a-days sometimes. We've had meetings. We've had film sessions. They're all locked in on what they can do. So no issues.
Quick related follow-up, visiting the hospital, was that kind of the timing of that kind of diffuse any
Well, it was
issues like
strange.
guys just
Yeah, it wasn't meant to diffuse anything. It was planned a month ago, but it was a pretty cool thing, and if there was something that was diffusing, it was, the painting, not by number, but that we all did. It took an hour and a half away because you had to focus in because of the lines and that. And I never seen a bunch of guys enjoy it more. And then to go down to the hospital and not be able to go in, we had to be outside and get a chance to meet the miracle kid who had a 1% chance of living, to go down there and see those doctors and nurses. And, we have the audacity to say, I'll get letters from me, you're my hero, or players, you're my hero. That's almost disturbing to me now, because for 10 straight months, I think 10 months from today, we've been in this, and these doctors and nurses, frontline workers, have been doing something that probably most athletes and coaches could never do: sustain at the highest level for 10 straight months. And so getting a chance to meet some of those, our players were really impressed by it, and get to talk to them and social distance, but talk to them, be outside with them, I think it was great for my guys, and I think they appreciated it too. We all strive for greatness, and I think those players got to see a young man who, like I said, had a 1% chance to live, and he looked as normal to me as he could be as a 8-year-old, whatever, and to see doctors and nurses that every day they're putting their lives in their hands. I mean, we can look at COVID any way anybody wants to look at it. We can look at it as a virus that can kill, or we can say it's like the flu. I mean, I differ from most people, but at the same time, I understand everybody's got their own way of looking at it. But when you go into a hospital every day and people are laying there with it and you're treating them, those, my man, are the real heroes of our country. It's like the people that go to war. It's doing something that you get very little benefit. You don't get extra pay. You don't get this or that. You do it because that's what you're made for. And God, it was a joy to see those doctors and nurses. It was a joy to see some of the kids. I just wish we could go in the hospital and visit, because it brings a different perspective. But it took away a little bit day after a tough loss, but it added a lot for me, and I think for my team. So you guys stay safe, stay healthy, keep masking up, and we'll see if now, as teams, and a lot of teams are coming down with it, there's more cancellations than transfers, and that's hard to believe, but there are. And so, one of the reasons I wanted the depth and to try to build the depth was in case this happened. And unfortunately, for Steven, that's sad for me, but for Marty, it's sad because I think he was just starting to come on, and now he'll be out for the 2.5, 3 weeks. And but we'll get through it, and we'll see what happens. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Coach. I'll be back shortly with a couple players. I believe we'll be joined by Thomas Kithier and Joey Hauser. We're about to be joined by Thomas Kithier. If we can address questions through the chat, we can get going. We'll go first to Chris Solari from the Georgia Free Press.
Hey, Thomas. Garza is obviously a different kind of beast right now. I guess on film, what do you see different from him this year than last year that's improved? And I guess, how do you slow him down at this point? What's the biggest focus?
Right. So, I think just with Luka Garza coming back, it just adds the more experience he's already had. And I mean, and plus his minutes are up from last year. And he's just an animal down there that just works. He has a huge heart when he plays. I mean, and trying to stop him though, that's going to be a challenge in itself. This is a dude that I don't think anybody has really been able to stop. I think what you're going to have to do is try to slow him down and just try to do your work early in a way where you're trying to meet him at the free throw line. You're trying to force him out of the paint to try to, we try to hit him first before he hits you, as coaches say to the bigs. So kind of bring the contact to him in the way, because he is a big dude down there that once he gets the ball 2 feet in the paint, it's almost impossible to stop.
We'll go next to Kyle Austin.
Hey, Thomas, want to ask you about your guys' communication on defense, just because I know X was such a big part of that last year. How you guys kind of progressed past that? Who's kind of taken on those roles, would you say, as the communicators on defense?
Yeah, obviously X was kind of like our quarterback on defense in a way last year, so losing him has been obviously it hurts us in a way, especially we're playing some younger guards up front that are underclassmen in a way, AJ at the point, and usually freshmen don't talk as much, I think I've definitely tried to help, being as much as I can. I know the other bigs that have been in there too have tried. I think Foster has done a phenomenal job out of everybody just trying to talk to people, and especially in practice. If Frosty's stopping a play and trying to tell everybody what to do, or if he sees something differently. So I think Foster's been one person who's stepped up on the communication level.
We'll go next to Lindsey Huddleston.
Hey, Tommy, you've definitely been a workhorse for the team this season. Just want to know what it's like when you're in there fighting, scratching and clawing, and then you have something like a very close loss like Purdue. How do you stay motivated? How do you keep your teammates motivated going forward?
Yeah, obviously we played as hard as we could. I don't think, honestly, you can see a game where we haven't played harder this year. Maybe we've made some mistakes here and there and got to fix some things. But honestly, it's just believing in yourself, to be honest. The Big Ten this year, it's a monster. It's an animal. I think every team is going to go through stretches this year in the Big Ten where they lose 2 and they grow 3 in a row or whatever. Rutgers is going through right now, and Rutgers is an unbelievable team. They have a ton of guys back from previous years, and we just beat them the other day, and that was a huge win for us. But honestly, just believing in yourself and not getting down, because I don't think there's going to be really separation in the Big Ten this year, just because literally you can get beat by any team at any night in this conference.
Right. All right. Thank you for that.
Go next to Gina Bardall from the State News.
Hi. Just before this, Coach shared with us that Madi and Steven tested positive for COVID. I'm just wondering if that's changed maybe the chemistry on the team, or how practices are without them there, and what's different.
Yeah, it's definitely, we got less bodies in practice. There's not as much time to rest to be out on the sidelines and subbing other guys in. But other than that, it's just we just got to continue pushing forward. You kind of got to expect things like this to happen. This has been such an unpredictable year for basketball. I mean, programs are shutting down left and right. So, you just kind of got to kind of expect it in a way. I mean, obviously everybody on the team has been texting Steven and Monty, but it's just kind of, you got to count your blessings because you never know when something like that can happen to you.
Thanks.
We'll go next to Audrey Dahlgren.
Hey, Thomas, as Izzo just told us, Madi was really starting to come on and get the hang of things of this Big Ten schedule and season. But how will you guys now try to plan to compensate and make up for not having him when it comes to Iowa?
Yeah, so definitely it's going to myself, Marky, and Julius all are going to have to step up in a way. Madi, he brings it every day to practice. There's never a moment where Madi doesn't try as hard as he can. If Madi's on scout team or not, whatever he's doing in practice, he's going 110 miles an hour. He's probably one of the more, at least upper body-wise, stronger guys we have. So, it's just going to really have to be getting in the gym more and watching more film to prepare for that.
So do you think, too, then kind of going off of that, more so the prep part of it versus, I don't want to say physicality when you're in it, but I mean, watching the film, that's where it's really going to come into play with this matchup with Iowa.
Yeah, Garza, I mean, he's going to shoot the ball. He could shoot the ball 20, 30 times. I mean, being honest, you never know. And then he can also step out and take a three. I think it's just honestly just watching film and really understanding like plays, how he posts up, what moves he's going to do, whether he's going to go over his right or left shoulder, if he's going to spin, just preparing for things like that.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, that appears to be all we have for Thomas. TK, thank you. We appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks.
And we'll have Joey Hauser up shortly. We are joined now by by Joey Hauser, and we will start with questions for Joey through the chat. I know somebody has to have one here. We'll go first to Chris Solari.
Hey, Joey. I guess what's the emotion, I guess, right now coming out of that Purdue game, and how do you kind of maybe use it as fuel rather than letting it dwell and sit in your heads and maybe affect you guys?
That was a tough game, and it doesn't help when your next game after that is 5-6 days away. You want to play right away, you get back in the court, but we're playing Iowa, which is one of the top teams in the Big Ten, one of the top teams in the country. So if you're not excited for that game, then you probably shouldn't be here. So that right there alone is going to get you bounce you back and get you ready for the next game.
Go next to Jana Bardo.
Hi, Joey. I asked Thomas this a similar question, but Coach shared with us Madi and Steven testing positive for COVID. I'm just wondering how, as a team, you guys kind of reacted to that and how you're moving forward without having them in practice and things like that.
Yeah, it's going to happen. Every team's dealing with it. Some teams are on a pause right now, so it's unfortunate, and we obviously wish they stay healthy. But moving forward, those guys got to step up in those roles. Obviously, Madi was getting some minutes for us, so now we got other guys who are going to fill in those minutes. Steven does a great job bringing energy on the bench and every day in practice, so someone's got to step into that role as well.
Thanks.
We'll go next to Audrey Dahlgren.
Joey, as you guys were getting ready to face Trevion Williams, Izzo was mentioning how you needed to throw the kitchen sink at him. But when it comes to Luka Garza, he's just kind of on a whole nother level. So defensively, what do you need to do in order to take him out of his game a little bit?
I think being physical is going to help. He's a really good player, and there's only so much you can do. I mean, he's proven that, double teams, triple teams, whatever it is, he's able to score the ball. But along with him, they have an unbelievable team. A lot of guys who can stretch the floor and shoot. So it's going to be a total defensive effort, and it's got to stop him as much as we can.
How can you learn, though, too, I guess, from Purdue? Because working inside out, obviously, as Izzo mentioned too, threes are worse than twos down low. So what can you take away from the Purdue game that you think will really help you in that aspect going in up against a team against Iowa?
Yeah, we did a little bit of doubling against Purdue. Helped off some guys that we thought we could help off. And I guess we're kind of bringing a similar approach to Iowa. But once you get in the game, things change, game plans change. So you got to adapt and change to whatever's needed.
And then just real quick, are you ready to get back on the road?
Yeah, for sure. We haven't played our best basketball on the road, so we got to start doing that. We've been pretty good at home in some games, had some big wins, played better against teams like Wisconsin. Obviously, the Purdue was a tough loss, but we haven't played up to our level that we can on the road at all yet.
Thank you.
We'll go next to Kyle Austin.
Hey, Joey, this is a game where you guys might be able to get up and down a little bit, just based on their style of play. How comfortable are you guys in your transition offense, and how much can that help you kind of just get things flowing offensively when you can run a little bit?
It's been one of our staples here for a long time, and it's something that we've kind of gotten away from. So this week we focused on it a lot. Coaches want us to get that ball, pushing a little bit more, getting in transition. And it starts on the defensive end and rebounding. You got to do that before you can run with the ball. So that's something we're going to focus on a little bit more. And we know Iowa can score at a high clip, and we're going to have to keep up with them. So transition is going to be a huge part.
All right, we've got one more in from Jim Comparoni.
Hey, Joey, I assume you guys have looked at turnovers a little bit too. When you guys looked at film and you've gotten into practice this week, what are some areas turnovers are going to happen. It's hard to avoid them in general, but I'm sure you want your numbers down. What kind of things did you see on film, and what have you guys done to try to curtail that a little bit?
Just trying to clean up our offense a little bit. We haven't been moving the ball as well as we were early in the year. A lot of turnovers, I think, are unforced, just kind of silly turnovers, whether it be charges or travels or, whatever it is. So just cleaning up the unforced ones is really what we got to do and focus on, because you can live, with a turnover when you're trying to make a really good play every once in a while, but cleaning up the unforced ones is going to be what we focused on.
All right, that appears to be everything we have for you, Joey. Joey, we appreciate you taking the time.
No problem. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Max.
Appreciate it. Y'all have a good day.
You too.